Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're consuming this broadcast. Welcome back to Ionisms, a simple, slow burn, straight talk about pets, movies, cricket, and geopolitics. Funny mix, isn't it? But that's the world that we live in, largely. Today's episode is going to be a reaction video to the episode that was aired perhaps yesterday night on Sports Today. I'll leave the link below so that you can see the entire video. But I thought I'll almost be, this is like all the editors, sports editors have come together to opine on the ongoing chaos, also known as the Asia Cup. Well, not the entire Asia Cup, but the India-Pakistan situation in the Asia Cup, creating so much of chaos and confusion. And so all of them have an opinion, so I'll kind of react to the opinion almost as if I'm also a panelist. Make no mistake, I'm no cricketing expert, they are, and so there's a lot to learn from them as well. But as an ordinary cricket lover, cricketing fan, this is my reaction to some of the commentary that is made on this episode. So sit back, relax, if you can, and let's dive into this episode of Ionisms.
Obviously, cricket is not. And look, politics and sport, politics has always been there in sport. Let's cut the chase. Whether it's the East Europeans, when there was the communist bloc, they used the Olympics to try and show their domination. 1980, the United States and the Western world boycotted the Moscow Olympics over the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And there are numerous examples of messaging that's done through sport. Sport is a very powerful weapon to send out political messages.
True, and just like many instances, matches have been boycotted, but there have been instances where matches have been continued to be conducted. Think of as far back as the Berlin Olympics in the middle of or around World War II, and then if you fast forward to around 70s, I think it was a match between the erstwhile Soviet Union and United States in chess, and as was the case even later in early 80s, if I'm not mistaken, I think a movie got made by the name of Miracles. It was, I think, an ice hockey championship or something like on those lines. And so, yeah, sport has continued, and delineating politics and sports should not be. I mean, it is, the reality is what I'm trying to say, but it's not always possible. So we have Mr. Mohsin Naqvi, who's the Interior Minister of Pakistan. We have Mr. Jay Shah, who's the son of the Home Minister here. So you kind of, if you were to do a score compare, it cancels each other out. And so let's get on with it.
In this case, I'm afraid it's not just become political, it's become toxic. I don't think this toxicity has ever existed between India and Pakistan of the level it is. There were friendships between players. Bishan Bedi, Mushtaq Mohammed were great friends off the field.
They played for the same county.
They played for Northants together. Sunil Gavaskar and Imran Khan were friends. Imran is the one who advised Gavaskar to wear a helmet all those years. That's all gone. The kind of vituperative attacks on each other, and I don't think there are any angels out here. We will pick up one Pakistani player, former player, and their ridiculous remarks that they make. We could pick up, and they will pick up Indian players. It's all very saddening. Politics has taken over, and what has taken over is what I see sometimes on primetime TV, performative nationalism. Performance करना है. फिर वो TRP के लिए हो कुछ भी हो कि हम देश के लिए जंग लड़ रहे हैं. अरे
this is like an instance of pot calling the kettle black, and I'm nothing against Mr. Sardesai, right? But it's a little rich to talk about jingoism, given the fact that in the recently concluded Operation Sindoor, some of the channels just went, it was like an absolute joke, if not a circus. And yeah, I heard the story that it was kind of by design to misdirect and miscommunicate, but come on. You could do it in a slightly more sanitized way, couldn't you? Misdirection can still happen. But what we got to see was absolute craziness. Let's keep it at that. I'm trying to use as polite words as possible. So Mr. Sardesai also says that there is no toxicity. I mean, he says there is there is enough of it has transcended toxicity. That's what he was trying to say. But toxicity has existed all throughout the history of the engagement. I don't know why it's a surprise, whether it is Mr. Shahid Afridi, whether with Mr. Gautam Gambhir's altercation or Mr. Shoaib Akhtar's altercation with Mr. Harbhajan Singh, or Mr. Amir Sohail's finger pointing in the 1996 quarterfinals against Mr. Prasad. So it was never a friendly banter. It was always highly toxic. Skills were never the problem or the team of the 90s or the 80s for Indian men's team. It was the psyche or the mindset, and the bunch of Pakistani players largely, I mean, there was no doubt they had talent, but what they had better perhaps was the street smartness, if you will, the instinct of, let's fight it out. That probably the cognitive ability was slightly better, and we classically were conditioned to be non-confrontational. That was the sign of times, if you will, non-aligned. Let's not fight. Let's just let live. But that India has changed post 2000, and so did the psyche of the players. And so when Mr. Ganguly took up the reins, rest is history.
Why are you playing? If you felt so strongly about Pakistan, you should not have played. You should have boycotted. Having played, then not shaking hands, which is a convention, then not following the rules, which is making political statements, and then the Pakistanis behave.
Three things, right? So I totally agree, given the fact the conflict is very fresh in everyone's hearts and minds. Probably the timing of Asia Cup is not ideal. They could have played next year. They could have excused themselves. And if Pakistan wanted to play Asia Cup, there's nothing wrong with it. They could go ahead. But the fact that we feel so strongly about it, that it could have easily, one could have skipped this edition and probably played it the next, whenever, if it is next year or the next to next year, whenever. And that would have meant that with the passage of time, lot of things would have settled down. You can never ease the pain, but you learn to cope with it better, deal with it better. So I do think that the timing was not right. Now, the second point was about not shaking hands. If you have decided to play, then shaking hands doesn't make you friends. You just shake, and you could give a firm shake with an eye contact. That also passes a message. So it's not like I'm going to be a friend and give you a hug. That's a different thing. And third thing, making a political statement. I think India does not need to prove anything to anybody, frankly. We know what our leaders are capable of, what they have told us, what the armed forces have told us. I think I'm satisfied and I suffice with that. In the sense, the world doesn't need to be additionally told. Now, is it wrong to dedicate victory to something that you cherish? No, it's not wrong. My only concern, not concern, my only thought was, did you want to do it after the end of the first match? Then what will happen is, come Sunday, there will be a retaliatory posturing and some commentary. And so where does this end? Basically, you don't want to get sucked into their level. You don't want to come down to their level. You want to always take the higher ground and say, look, I don't even want to. One of the best things that we used to do earlier was ignore. And I think they did take us for a ride. They did take that as a gesture of cowardice, if you will, that we were taking the higher ground and not responding. I think that message is landed with Pakistan, that's no longer the case. So now you don't need to make that statement, and probably you could, if you had to, if you reach the final and win the final, and as a victory gesture that in honor of the departed, you want to dedicate the victory. That has happened before multiple times in multiple teams. This wouldn't have been an exception. It wouldn't have surprised anybody, to be fair, and that's perfectly fine. So I think the timing was a bit off.
Brats. So you have India behaving like bullies, and you have Pakistan behaving like petulant children. And I think it all made for a very sad spectacle. That's my view.
So collateral was cricket. You were saying to politics on either sides of the divide.
Yes, it was. I think the cricket has lost out.
All right. Okay. So from Rajdeep's other side, let's move on to our other editor, raring to go, Gaurav Sawant. Make your point.
So, it's not that we don't learn from history. It's not one odd player. There is a pattern to statements that are made by Pakistani players. Mushtaq Mohammad, Rajdeep spoke of Mushtaq Mohammad. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nikhil and Vikrant. When Pakistan defeated India, he said it's victory of Muslims over Hindus. And it's not just one statement. Waqar Yunus, Mushtaq Ahmad. I said Mushtaq Ahmad. I said Mushtaq. I said no. Hold on. Again, this is how Rajdeep. Don't. No, I'm being serious. Don't trivialize. No, you said Mushtaq Ahmad. I said Mushtaq Ahmad. I said anyway. Mushtaq Ahmad.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
No, you can't
make your point. Let him finish.
You can't mix name.
This is becoming like a childish argument, but the point is, there have been instances in the past where people have had very derogatory things to say, both on and off the field. And so, yeah, India has long been, like I said before, the quiet child, if you will. And if they've now grown up and found a spine, a voice, don't necessarily think that is anything wrong, and it can't be one-sided, right? Only one side has all the spine and the voice and the other side keeps quiet. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, if India has become a little more aggressive than what it was before, then probably Pakistanis will have to introspect and see what they were earlier and what India was earlier and what it is now, and how much of it is their contribution in some sense.
Read the writing on the wall. That Mushtaq Ahmad saying is victory of Muslims over Hindus.
Terrible.
Waqar Yunus. Okay, one thing is terrible. Waqar Yunus says that when Mohammad Rizwan offers namaz on the cricket field, Musalman Hindu ke samne namaz kar rahe, that was the match-winning point for him. Ambassador G. Parthasarathy, you quoted.
And that was very surprising and very disappointing on part of Star Sports. They continued to host Mr. Waqar Yunus despite such derogatory commentary online, on air, on international television. I think he did issue an apology later on, or somewhat of an apology, but the fact that you cannot make these kind of commentaries, of course, you're entitled to your personal opinion. I can't change that. But airing it on national television, it's like a very inflammatory comment to make, and it's very provocative, right? So it also reflects the poor mindset some of these players have, and you try to have some degree of respect for their cricketing achievements, and they, with this one or two such comments, they just make us question all of that, and the respect for the player goes down. And so I was very disappointed that at our end, we control all the powers that be in some sense or the other. And so why was no disciplinary action taken is something that I'll never know.
Khan, Ambassador Chief Parthasarathy, 1982, he says for Imran Khan, it was jihad for Kashmir, playing cricket with India. So how many such loose statements? Muhammad Yusuf Yohana himself had to convert from Christianity to Islam. What does he say? The Pakistani cricketers were trying to convert Brian Lara to Islam. Inzamam ul Haq, he was trying to convert other Hindu players to Islam. There is a pattern to this. It's a gentleman's game, clearly not from the Pakistani side. I have 10 more instances. Shahid Afridi breaking the television said, Yusuf Yohana calling our captain. I mean, we are bullies. No, we are not bullies. Every Indian identifies with the pain and agony of what happened during Operation or during Pahalgam, and Operation Sindoor was the response. There is no convention. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nikhil. The Pakistani team refused to shake hands with the British team at the Oval in 2006. Didn't they? Did you say they are being bullies or petulant? You did not. So you're very selective. This self-flagellation is completely uncalled for, especially when India.
Rajdeep and Gaurav make pertinent points. I think, politics and sports have always been intertwined. They can never be kept aside. I think the basic human nature is that of me being superior to, that's the first human instinct, me being superior than you are. We live in an age of nuclear war where you do not have wars as such. So how do you prove your superiority over the other country? I think sports the only thing. Look at China. They spent millions and millions of dollars. in their Olympic program to tell the world that, listen, we are at the same level of the US of A. So I think sports has now become that other avenue where you show your dominance or your superiority over the other countries. You can't really keep that out. So far as what happened on the field is concerned, I think while Rajdeep does talk about, sportsman spirit, but I think Surya Kumar Yadav cannot isolate himself from what is happening in the country. You must not forget, that Surya Kumar Yadav is also a citizen of the country, right? Now, when Mohammad Yusuf says, or there is a racist slur at Surya Kumar Yadav, why is it that I take offense to it? Not because he said it for an individual, because he said it to an Indian captain who's the ambassador of my country. When he says that, he's abusing the entire country. How is it that the Surya Kumar Yadav, who was sitting at his home when he saw those people die in Pahalgam, cannot be affected by what happened there? So,
like I said, let's not impose how I feel you should feel the same way. This is a very majoritarian point of view. It's like, this is the way I express my grief. So if you don't express it in the same way, that means you're not grieving. That's a ridiculous logic and argument, right? I grieve privately, and I don't believe in going and standing in the balcony and wailing out. And if somebody does that, then that's their prerogative. Even I cannot judge them by the same analogy. One should not generalize grieving or the impact that the devastating visuals that emerged from the Pahalgam incident that emerged onto national consciousness. And so making all this is almost borderlining, implying that is the reason why Skipper made that comment.
Wants to express his solidarity with the country. If there is a bit of nationalism in him, then he has the right to go out on the field and make that decision not to shake hands. And I think on that front, he's completely right. There have been past occasions where,
But Nikhil, can I ask you a question on that?
First of all, it wouldn't have been an individual decision. It would have been definitely internally discussed, and there would have been some consensus. I doubt if it, or whatever little that we know from the outside of Mr. Surya Kumar Yadav, doesn't seem to be this suddenly spontaneous person coming up with this instant reaction. That doesn't seem likely. Could be. In fact, I would probably argue, and I'm being judgmental and little bit and probably a little cynical, that I do think that sometimes he needs to add a little more gravitas in such appearances, whether it's a press conference. And I know he wants to keep it light and borderlining on cheeky comments and all that, and probably that's me, old school. But I would want my skipper to hold some personality, some gravitas, something like what Mr. Virat Kohli did, and he excelled in the gravity that he brought to the press conferences. And of course, how he handled them in being aggressive on the other part, that's a separate argument. But the presence of a skipper is something to, and that too for the Indian cricket team, has to have some gravity attached to it.
Right. So, but if he was so affronted, and if we are going to attach the fact that he has every right to make a political statement, which he did because he was affected by it, then he had every right to boycott that match and say that we don't want to play. But by the virtue of the fact that the Indian cricket team decided to play that match, then you're entering into the realms of sports. Okay. And then every other political theater is not open to you.
So that's the thing. That's why I made my first point. Sports and politics are not, cannot be looked at in separate view at the moment. And I'll tell you why. When they take on the cricket field, why is it that he played in that cricket match? I don't think playing what is necessarily a means of extending a hand of friendship. He went and played that sport because his country needed him to play it at that moment. Why should India be isolated because of a country that, from the Indian point of view, was the guilty party? So what do? We allow the guilty party to continue, but we must isolate ourselves because of what happened there. No, but why should you do that? My point is, your eventual aim should be to isolate Pakistan out of it. He went and played that sport. That's why I say not to extend the hand of friendship. If he does not play that sport, they pull out of the tournament. Who does he harm? He harms his own countrymen. He harms India.
No, why does he harm? There are
Because there would be
majority of
sanctions.
Indians didn't want
No,
to
but
want him to
there are
play.
sanctions. There are other repercussions that happen.
You
My
deal
thing
with
is-
the repercussions.
No, but the point is, in past, every time there has been an issue, let's say South Africa as an example, you've isolated South Africa. The Western Bloc isolated Russia. Here you're saying, no, we can't isolate Pakistan, so let us isolate ourselves. Why should you then have to pay for something?
Maria,
like
go and
Pakistan?
then
Yeah, once you've signed up for a tournament, you can't randomly pull out, and it has financial implications, ramifications, and forget the financials. Even if you can, say nationalism is greater than financial implications, then you don't play the match in the first place. Like, that goes back to square one. But once you've committed, once you've signed on the dotted line, you're bound by the laws or the rules of engagement. Just like now what's happening to Pakistan, where they threatened to pull out and probably got a dressing down, if you will, on how they cannot do that. And they played ball. So they went and played with UAE, and then come Sunday, they'll play with India. So you can't pull out like that. And once you've agreed to play.
So, Preeti, look, we are talking about sportsmanship and that spirit that should begin perhaps with cinema first. Because just as the collateral, cinema and cricket becomes a collateral in this politics that plays out between the two nations. You have a situation where Diljit Dosanjh, his movie is banned in India only because it features Hania Ameer, a superstar. You have a situation where Myra Khan features in a movie with Shah Rukh Khan, and that song has to be deleted. I mean, what kind of, that sports delinking with politics can happen first. You have to delink cinema and arts.
There's a
You have-
difference.
But cricket party.
I don't know what the relevance to the context, because cinema and art could be an individualistic thing, whereas team sport is a very, very different game, right? So yes, I totally agree that when you are boycotting, when you are, it's like a symbolic gesture where you're trying to say that I will not allow one artist or any artist to play. So it's not like literally the blocking one person. It's like sending a message that we will we symbolically protest any kind of engagement or collaboration or collaborative efforts. And that's fair. If that's a country's stance, then that's what it is.
And sitting here, I feel we triggered by something. We won the game. We've been beating them every day. And if you look at the India-Pakistan record overall, we're still lacking far behind. And I know right now we shouldn't have gone on to play the Asia Cup. The Asia Cup should not have happened. The fact is that it's happening. And to say that India should boycott the game and not play the game, like Nikhil said, why do you want to punish yourself? Go out, beat them this Sunday, next Sunday, and the finals. Hisab barabar bhi to karna hai. And then, India was always a superpower in cricket in terms of the revenue. But India has become the real superpower in world cricket now, also because you are the world champions in every format. It's the
Correction. We have yet to win the Test Championship, but I guess metaphorically speaking, what Mr. Vikrant Gupta is trying to say is that over the last, say, 10, 15 years, we have made it to the finals more often than not, or made it to the last four more often than not. And so we're playing consistent, high-quality cricket. That's a fair assessment, whether it's home or away.
Indian cricket. And I come from a generation. Again, Rajdeep is the elder generation. He grew up with the romance of India-Pakistan. While I was growing up, I would see a Javed Miadad and Imran Khan, a Wasim Akram. India would play them every day, lose to them every day. As kids, I'd be disappointed. I used to play cricket, and every day that India-Pakistan game was happening, we would switch on the television. India would lose, and we'll have to switch it off.
True that, to a large extent, a lot of the matches that we lost were on two counts. One was the fact that I mentioned earlier about having or not having that final push or killer instinct to take the game to the deep and close it and almost let go at some point, and probably even little intimidated by the fast bowling battery that Pakistan had at the time, not believing in your own confidence. But to be fair, globally, not many cricketing powerhouses dealt with that situation any better. So, but the other part is, whenever we would play in Sharjah, if I remember correctly, some of the umpiring was absolutely appalling, and many matches were decided, or at least not decided, had a large impact by poor umpiring.
Now's the time for us to actually, and I'm not saying that we need to enjoy playing with them, but now that we are in multinational tournaments, let's beat them every day. When was the last time they beat us in an ICC tournament? The Champions Trophy final 2017. And secondly, shaking hands.
T20 World Cup.
And then one in 2022. Yeah. And secondly, shaking hands. It's not a rule. It's a convention. Cricket runs on two things. One is the laws of the game. The other is the spirit of the game. These are the MCC playing conditions. So there are spirit of the game. You may shake hands. You may not.
But do you make a political statement? Is that a convention?
No, can I tell you what? Can I just step in for a moment?
Yeah.
He's right. Shaking hands is a convention. It's the spirit of MCC cricket. It's up to each individual. I don't want to shake your hand. It's your lookout. But when you go and make a political statement, and like it or not, Surya, you may approve of the statement as Indians. We may want Surya Kumar Yadav to make that statement, but it goes against the rules of the ICC. Exactly? 1 minute. Usman Khwaja wore a black armband in support of Gaza and Palestine. Moin Ali tried to do the same. They were censured and fined. Why? No. Let's
Dhoni tried that in 19
Dhoni put a soldier's insignia in a match against South Africa. ICC acted. Why have you not acted now? Look, ICC has to decide. Are you Indian Cricket Council or International Cricket Council? No, 1 minute.
That's going in a completely different tangent, right? The whole point is this, that it's the Indian government's decision basis which BCCI has acted. Now, if it's a commercial decision, it's a financial implication, or there is some other thought behind it, one can understand that playing just the multilateral tournaments and no bilateral, we know that there is, if push comes to shove, there is logic in that. But by and large, it won't really matter if you have to forfeit the matches. And then you win tournaments despite this handicap, despite this obstacle, whether it is Olympics or World Cup fixtures or what have you. Yes, one could argue, what if both of you reached the finals? Would you then forfeit the final? So all those things are there, and therefore they've kept the door open, saying we will play in multilateral tournaments, but nothing else. So it is not just, one can't have a unidimensional view to this.
Similarly, Pakistan. Asian Cricket Council is headed by Mohsin Naqvi, the Interior Minister of Pakistan. He has to decide, are you the Interior Minister of Pakistan or are you heading the Asian Cricket Council? I think it's, you see, the problem is, this is actually a proxy war being fought between, we needed to manage the headlines. The truth is, because there were lots of angry voices on social media saying, why are you playing with Pakistan? So you scripted, you must listen to this. The truth of the matter is, both sides. One was trying to manage the headlines for domestic constituency, and Mohsin Naqvi, embarrassed as he was by what had happened, was trying to manage his domestic constituency.
Surya said,
that is the reality.
Surya said, I dedicate this victory to the families of the Pahalgam victims. So Pahalgam is India. So there was a terror incident in India. As an Indian, he can, right? Secondly, he said, and to the armed forces. The field of play, which is the post-match presentation. Why are we not criticizing, and why are we not picking instances when Sachin Tendulkar, just 15 days after the 26-11 attack, when we won the Chennai Test match against England, said the same thing?
Or when the team
he said, I dedicate this. He said, we dedicate this win to the families of the
victims. Or when the team took to the knee for Black Lives Matter, you could do that then and get away with it. Okay. Because it's festive season and we have lots of fans, which we're very happy with. I don't have much time, but 1 minute, Gaurav, make your point.
My point is, Black Lives Matter, but
Indian lives don't matter in Pahalgam, and specifically Hindu lives don't matter. Just because Hindus were killed in Pahalgam and India raised that point and Surya Kumar Yadav raised that point, we are outraging. How could he say that?
Indians.
No, they're not
There was also Muslims.
Yes, Indians, predominantly
Okay.
Hindus were singled out and killed. But my point is,
Then we should have
why-
boycotted
why-
and ensured
again,
Asia
that
Cup
point-
doesn't
You
play.
just explained that point.
No,
but
we
you
should have ensured Asia Cup doesn't take place.
I
We
am
have enough power to do that.
I am all for not playing any cricket with Pakistan and isolating Pakistan from ICC.
Now, why
Get
aren't you
rid of
doing
them.
that? Why aren't you doing that?
I have argued this for
No,
since
no,
26
no,
gone
no, no,
100
no,
times.
Savants in the
But
world.
okay,
That's
no,
why
no.
the headline
I am
management started.
sorry.
No,
I
no,
am
no.
sorry. The tragedy is too many people bat for the Pakistani narrative.
fighting for- I'm
It's
saying-
the
I'm saying
Pakistani
isolate
narrative
them.
that
Okay,
we are
Nikhil,
batting
you have
for.
20
The
seconds.
point,
Okay.
very frankly, is
Okay, make it
if
fast.
Black Lives Matter, so do Indian
Okay,
lives,
yes.
and we have a right to say this.
Go, make
Okay.
it.
Finally, as far as
20
that
seconds.
reference is concerned, I think Surya Kumar Yadav also mentioned Operation Sindoor in the post-match press conference. I think that wasn't done, and I'll tell you why. As an Indian, I may have enjoyed that, but imagine tomorrow if a Pakistani player
Right.
comes and mentions May 10th and
Or
Rafale or
Operation
whatever,
Sindoor.
or
Or
Rafale
Operation
or whatever,
Sindoor.
I would
May
be
10th,
offended.
they were on their knees.
No, I
Okay.
agree, but I'm saying even if it's a fictitious story, if
Got
he
it.
mentions that, I as an Indian would be offended. So similarly,
Okay.
I think
On a lighter
That
note,
is
Nikhil.
why-
And that's bound to happen. The tit for tat will continue, and they will come up with an outrageous statement or a comment, and 100%. I'd be very surprised on the if they win on Sunday, then clearly there will be a lot more. And I don't know how that helps or how that works out. And if they lose, then clearly there will be enough outrage as well. There will be some sort of retaliation, is what I would imagine. It's not good for the sport. It's not good for the sport. And like I said, if we had so much of objection problem, then we don't play, as simple as that. And that's not happened. So let's not argue on that.
Is playing on both sides of the pitch today.
Pakistan out of
Okay,
ICC.
Maria, 1 second, guys. Okay, can I just can we not,
And I
Maria?
will go back to the same narrative
Okay.
of cinema. I'm of the opinion that there is a generation which enjoyed Ghulam Ali. Why shouldn't we enjoy it?
Because
Only because his
give
concerts
it 10
have to be
seconds.
banned
Give
in
it,
India.
give it 10 seconds. Give me 10 seconds to respond to
So
that.
I think-
Our cricketers are not Martians from outer space. Our film industry are not Martians from outer space. When India bleeds, they should also bleed, and they should also know
Preeti.
that Pakistanis
Okay,
are
guys.
unacceptable
Ideally, this-
till they
Okay, I have
come
the last
against
30
terror.
seconds.
Ideally this, ideally that. But the fact is, we do not live in an ideal world anymore.
Yes,
To be
it's
honest.
not utopian.
And like,
Let's end it at that. Yeah, we don't live in an ideal world, and therefore being practical is super critical. And the practicality recommends that we move on, and we do all the diplomatic offensive that is required, or the narrative that is required in the right forums, which is like, say, the United Nations or what have you. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you ask me personally, I would delineate these narratives and let us move on. We are not insecure as a country, and we do not need to prove anything to anybody. So I'll leave it at that. You let me know. I know this is a delicate conversation, so exercise restraint is a sign of maturity. It doesn't make you weak. The fact that people who are stronger, they don't need to shout. They can just talk and at their own pace, at their own time, which we have proven over a period of time. So let's hope the Sunday match is without any of these incidents, and play goes on as per schedule. And now that we have gone on to play the tournament, we should see to it that it goes on to its logical conclusion. With that, I just hope that you take it in the right spirit. Stay well, stay calm. That's all the time I had for this episode. And by all means, do not add to the narrative or jingoism or angst that is already present. Play the role in diffusing tension. Let there be more peace. Happiness might still be a long stretch, but at least peace is possible in our own way. And I'm saying peace internally. Right, and so till we meet the next time, if you like something like this, stay tuned for more such content. Do leave a comment, and like they say, share with those who care with this kind of straightforward, simple, slow burn content. Hope to see you soon. My name is Ayan and you're watching Ayanisms. Peace out.